everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got an epic show ahead, but just remember, if any of you have experiences you'd like to share, I'd love to hear from you. You can either email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com or head over to paranormalportal.net and scroll down and find the button that says Interview Me, and that'll allow you to look at a calendar of possible times and dates and find a date that works for you. Love to hear your stories, so definitely get in touch with me. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you all are doing wonderful out there, whatever you're doing. And thank you for the continued love and support that you guys give to me and the show. We've got an epic journey today, folks. We are being rejoined by an old friend, Mr. Barry from Western New York is rejoining us. He was on season 5, episode 15, if you want to go back and hear his first interview. And we are going to continue the journey today, talking about some more of his experiences and fleshing out some of that and doing the deep dive. So I hope you guys are ready, because we're going in. Hey, Barry, welcome to the show, and thanks for coming back. It's great to see you, brother.
Thanks so much. I'm really glad to be here, and I guess we're going to jump back into the paranormal portal today.
It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it, and I'm glad it's you, brother. So where are we going today? What's the agenda on our journey?
Well, as if my life hasn't been strange enough, we're going to talk about UAP, except for I'm going to call them UFOs, which is I've been doing my whole life, right?
Amen.
So,
yeah.
I thought I would stick to that subject for the most part. We may get into a little bit of woo stuff, but
sure.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about some of my experiences, and so here we are.
Yeah, well, take us away, brother. Where do we start?
Well, first I want to mention that if Harvard can talk about some of this stuff, then Barry Anderson can talk about it here. So, we're talking crypto-terrestrials, magical crypto-terrestrials, alien, humid, technologies, and interdimensional things. So I thought, you know what? Some of this stuff gets a little bit strange, but if Harvard can talk about it, I'm going to talk about it. So
there we go. Let's do it.
We're going to go back in time to the 1900s. So, talking about some of my earliest memories, 1965 and 1966, I'm going to guess I was in preschool and kindergarten era. And I mentioned in episode 15 in season 5 that I had memories of some things, but the earliest memories, I do recall a lot of very bizarre things that were going on. And I recall having beings coming into my bedroom, and they would basically, I would be frozen, not able to move, and levitated out of my room and floated out through it sounds so bizarre, but this is from a little child's point of view here, floated out of the room, totally conscious as this is happening, and extremely, frightened while it's going on, and brought into a, beam of light into a lit room onto a table and examined by strange creatures. And I can remember thinking as a little child, just laying there with my eyes closed, just saying, don't look, don't move, don't look, don't look, don't move, over and over again. Ultimately I would wake up in my bed the next morning, and I had no idea what was going on. I did not know anything about religion at this point. I did not know anything about aliens or UFOs for that matter.
Right.
And all I know is this strange, scary event was happening. And I think it had happened more than once,
Sure.
You looking back, you go, what would these beings want with a little child at that age? Why would they be doing something like this? And I always wonder, why have I had so many paranormal events? I do believe I had a near-death experience when I was a toddler,
Oh,
and my parents never wanted to talk about this too much, but apparently I disappeared during a little gathering of family near the lake. My mother had an infant. My sister was an infant, and I was a toddler, and I just wandered off. And my father found me floating in the bottom, laying
oh,
in the bottom of the lake, and revived me somehow. So yeah,
wow.
that may have had something to do with it. We'll always wonder.
Sure,
And the fact that I have a grandmother who had tremendous psychic abilities could also possibly have something to do with it. I
sure.
don't know.
Yep,
I
yep.
will always be curious what would make something like this happen. But, any case, I never really talked about this with too many people at all and kind of put it behind me for many years.
Right.
But looking back after I learned about abduction and so forth, I go, oh my gosh, this seems like a classic case of that. And
Right.
so, again, how do they transport you through a wall? I just remember seeing, strange looking glowing light and uh, almost being just lifted up, floated right out. And the next thing I'm on a table. Know that, somebody in the medical field of psychology would say, oh, you had, some type of night terrors
Sure.
or, something like that. But again, I don't know. I was conscious when these events were happening, and they were very, very frightening. So
So it's not
that,
like you recall it as a dream. You remember these things happen very vividly, yeah?
yeah, yes, and that's the interesting thing is I had other experiences as well, and remember seeing orbs coming in, and there were almost like a spirit guide type of
Mm-hmm.
being coming in and taking me out for a wild ride, where I
Sure.
was excited about this.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this was astral projection,
Right.
if my body was laying in the bed. It felt like I was, flying, and this being would show me incredible sights and places. I remember feeling excited to see vivid colors and strange machineries and so forth.
Oh.
And that was a fun and exciting thing where almost felt like it was a being that I knew, or there was
Mm.
some connection to, and I don't understand exactly what that was, but I was very comfortable in the presence of this light being. But the other abduction stuff was frightening. They were strange. I feel like there were three, maybe there were more than one or two beings that seemed like they would just show up, come into the room, be standing there, elevate me up, and take me and put me on a table and be examining me like I was. I
Yeah.
don't know if it was say a lab rat or
Sure.
however they were looking at me. Maybe
Sure.
were they being loving? I don't know about that. But they put me back to my bed and I woke up in the morning. So, they weren't trying to harm me,
Mm-hmm.
so whatever their purpose was, I don't know,
Right.
but,
I got to ask
you
you,
just,
if you don't mind, just a couple of questions, just because it's a curiosity to me, and many people believe that there are some consistencies between abductees, and one of which is, do you have an Rh negative factor blood?
no, I do
Okay.
not.
All
I
right.
have A negative, and Yeah, so that is interesting though
Well,
to
yeah,
see
then
that.
you do have an Rh negative factor, so you're
Oh,
A negative.
okay.
So that's
Hey,
what that means is
I'm,
like
okay,
I'm O positive, so mine is
okay,
obviously a positive Rh factor, but yours is negative. That's interesting. Okay.
okay. So yeah, sorry.
No, no, that's fine.
I should know these things at
No,
this
no.
point in time, but I'm not really. I have read a little bit about that, and trying to figure out the similarities. What are the similarities or the
Right.
connections?
But that's the
And
interesting
then
thing is with a lot of abductees, that's not necessarily universal, but it's very consistent that a lot of people have that negative factor on their blood, and I don't know what that is, but and I can't even guess because I have no understanding of biology to that level. But it seems to be a commonality in many abductees. So,
that is interesting.
right, right,
I had one of those DNA test things done,
sure,
just to
sure,
see. It was very interesting. The
okay,
funny thing is, they said I had a high count of Neanderthal DNA, and more than a large percent of their
wow.
customers, which was kind of interesting. And
Well, that is interesting, really.
so I go,
Yeah.
well, maybe the Neanderthals were the cool guys that, were
Ma-
the mellow ones. Who knows? And Cro-Magnons came around and, beat the crap out of them. But
Maybe,
somewhere along the line, I have ancestors that were mating with Neanderthals, and,
sure.
but for the most part, I am Scandinavian descent.
Okay.
Both my father and my mother. And I think on my mom's side, she is the A negative.
Sure.
I think she has, ancient connection to the Sami people who are nomadic reindeer herders
Oh,
way up in the northern Scandinavian areas. But I don't
yeah.
know that it has anything to do with anything. But it's interesting, because
Well,
you start to question everything when this
right.
stuff happens.
Right. And interestingly enough, a lot of times these abductions will follow family lines. So it's kind of curious whether perhaps your grandmother or maybe your mother or someone else had experiences and going back into who knows how long, but and you can answer to that if you know or if you don't know. But the other thing I wanted to ask is you said they would appear, and I'm curious what how would you describe these beings?
This is the weird part, Brent. My brain or they have put a block
Mm,
on that.
hmm.
I can remember all kinds of things, but when I try to think about actually what they look like, I'm being blocked. And I'm kind of grateful, maybe, that some
Sure.
reason I've thought about getting hypnosis, but
Yeah.
I keep stopping myself because I
Sure.
don't know. There was a point when I was ready to do that, but now I'm still wondering um, what exactly that is. In my mind, I think that they were alien grays,
Okay.
but I cannot say that 100%.
Sure.
And it is, I remember as a child while this was going on, seeing these forms leaning over me. And I think that I may have just somehow, out of protecting my own
Sure.
self, have created this block from
Hmm.
being able to remember that specific detail, which is very interesting. And
It is.
I
Yeah.
don't know if other people have had this or not, or, I don't really know.
Sure.
But I'm going to think that either they put that upon me
Sure.
or I have developed that just as a way to protect myself. I don't know.
Right, but it's interesting. Memory blocks obviously are really well documented in abductee cases, and it's hard to know which version it is. Is this them, blocking it, or is it just a survival technique, a self-preservation technique that, people going through traumatic experiences, and it's not necessarily abductions, but they'll block out whole segments of it just because it's too hard to remember the emotional price tag of it. But that is very, very interesting. I was going to ask
Yeah.
you another question, but it slipped my mind for now. So, yeah,
Okay.
continue on,
Well,
sir.
it's funny because I remember, there were these little, for me, I was a little child, so they weren't little to me. They were,
Sure.
but they were these forms, these beings there, but, and it seems like, and I don't, I really, more than I do probably about what other people, told you or what you've learned from your show. It seems like the things there was some kind of a glowing, almost a foggy atmosphere when they come into, like, oh, they open a portal or whatever it is that they're doing. So it gets a little bit surreal while this is going on. And of course, I would have just chalked it up as a kid's dream, except for then I found out that a lot of other people had been going through the same thing, and then it just suddenly, hits you. But, I just recently I decided to look up things that were going on in the UFO events in Western New York at that time in 1965 and 66. And there were some very interesting UFO cases there that of craft landing in cow fields around. I mean, I grew up in a little rural, small town area in Western New York, and there were some very strange and interesting, stories that were documented, in the news of, some craft that actually, came down, landed. One even had some kind of a creature sighting attached to it. So, the place is an active area. People through the years have told me their stories. And one of those, well, two of the people were my grandparents. My grandmother, Mildred, the psychic woman that I've
Sure.
spoken about.
Yeah.
She was a little bit of a celebrity up in Western New York State, and would go out. She was a tremendously gifted person. And when I was a kid, probably, I'm going to say 10, 12 years old, I remember sitting in their house. My grandma was very religious, interestingly. She was a devout Catholic. And she had some issues with the church and her abilities at
Yeah.
one point, apparently. But they decided to, since she did good things with her gift, that they would forgive her for this or something, But
Oh.
I saw, looking on their bookshelf, I saw a book on UFOs or something, and I asked them about it, and they kind of stopped and they looked at each other and go, and my grandmother, she doesn't hold back. She goes, well, Dad and I saw a UFO, and they told me that my grandmother used to do readings for small groups of women, and my grandfather was the kind of driving Miss Daisy around. He would drive her to the places, and he took her out someplace out in a little village or rural place outside of town to do these readings. And on the way back at night, driving down a country road, they began being followed by a light, and then my grandmother starts going, Dad, there's something weird in the sky. Yes, Mel, yes, I can hear my grandfather right now. They're laughing. They're up there laughing right now. And he'd be like, yes, Mel, yes, Mel. And well, soon enough, this thing comes down at a lower level and is, hovering right there, following them. And they said it was a flying saucer that was following them. And then I found out that that wasn't the only time that they have had experience with UFOs.
Oh.
They also told me that they had a daytime sighting of a craft sitting over Chautauqua Lake. The lake that I grew up around is Chautauqua Lake.
Okay.
It's a beautiful, long lake. I don't know, 20 miles long or so, and maybe 2 miles at the widest in width. But they just saw a craft just sitting there. And I've had other people tell me that they have seen UFOs around that area, including myself through the years. So My grandparents, I thought they are the most honest people that I know. Out of everybody, will never tell me a lie. So that, but the thing that they said to me was, whatever you do, don't tell anybody because they'll think we're crazy. Well, sorry, Grandma, I broke that promise. But
Sure.
I'm telling people, and they think I'm crazy too. So, anyways, that happened, and so there could be a family connection as
Right,
well.
right. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, that's and fascinating stuff. So, what next?
Yeah. So this last summer, last July, I went back to Western New York to visit family and some friends. And I got together with a childhood friend, Mark. Hi, Mark, if you're listening. And we haven't seen each other in over 45 years or so. I mean, it's been decades since we saw each other. And it was so great to see him. I was so excited. We were happy. But I said to him, and I goes, "Hey, do you remember?" And he looked at me before I could even say it. He goes, "The UFO?" And I was like, "Oh my God, yes." And he goes, "Yeah, I've told my family about it many times." And
Wow.
so the story is, and I believe it was probably, we've tried to figure it out, and we think it's 1972 or 1973. So I'm a, 10-year-old boy or 11-year-old boy or something. I can't do the math right now.
Sure.
But anyways, I'm getting old. I went camping with his family to the Allegheny National Forest, to the campgrounds there, and was going during the summer, and I was going to stay with them for a week or two. I don't remember how long, probably a couple weeks, but it was an evening, and us boys were running around the park, just having a good old time. Nobody warned us about bears or anything. Good thing we didn't run into them, but
Right.
maybe I would have said bears or aliens. Which one would be the? But the adults were all sitting around a campfire, probably drinking beer and telling stories, while we were out and about, running around. And we went down by the lake, which we had been swimming in all day long and playing. But by this point, everything was quiet down there. We were the only ones there. And I don't know. It's funny because I wanted to check point with him before I got on this show to just say, well, any more details, that we
Right.
talked about. But what my recall was, we saw some kind of a strange light in the sky, and it just kind of dropped down, and got close. This was no blurry light here. This was a spacecraft,
Oh, wow.
and it was over the lake and reflecting lights down into the water. And we were just in shock, kind of
Sure.
stunned at what happened. What we were seeing. Our minds can't quite comprehend it, at first, but
Right.
we realized that this is a spaceship, and I would say that for the most part, it's was a flying saucer type, or
Okay.
possibly maybe a little more of an ovally shape or something. But it had windows and lights. I mean, this was a craft. This was not a just a ball of light or anything. And
Wow. Okay.
the odd part is, again, that there's this little blurred spot in my memory, which worries me. I remember us running. Mark took off faster than I did. In his conversation, he goes, "I remember I outran you back to the cabins, and he goes, I was faster than you or whatever, And then I started going, oh God, please, I hope there wasn't any missing time there,
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just remember, being frightened and running through the woods, through a path, through, trying to get to, and the thing seemed like it was following over top of us, Like it, I don't know if it was coincidental that it was following us or that it knew that we were there or if it knew that I was there, then you start questioning all that. Like, was it there because of me or was it just a chance thing that happened?
Right.
We had, it was a shared memory that after all these years, we recalled it. Both of us recall this incident. And, so I go, wow, that really did happen. He's like, oh, yeah, it definitely happened for sure. No
Wow.
question about it. Of course, when we did get back to the cabins and try to tell the adults, yeah, yeah, boys, clean up and get ready for bed now, goofy kids just being
Oh.
goofy, and we were goofy
Oh.
kids, but
Yeah.
we were serious and we were upset that the adults didn't take us
Sure.
serious, but it is what it is,
Yeah. Y-
and, back in that time, at that point in time, when I was about that age, I remember we were living in our home, and my younger sister, who is 3 years younger than me, I remember her telling my parents that she woke up and there were little bald men standing at the end of the bed.
Wow.
And it's funny, I talked to her recently about this, and she goes, oh, yeah, I remember that. But my parents, of course, again, dismissed that and go, oh, you were just sleeping, just dreaming or whatever. But I talked to her about it. So, again, the family connection thing could be there. And so there's a, very good possibility that they've been following our family for a long time.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so there was that. I thought I'd throw that in there since my sister was there when my friend and I were talking about this. And,
Sure.
she remembers that because I brought it up to her. And so
It
yeah,
it's
that was
really
another interesting.
it's really powerful, I think, when other people are able to corroborate an experience. And that doesn't negate an individual experience, but for me personally, I've had experiences when I've been alone many, many times, but I've also had a handful when I was with other people. And I'm really grateful for that because that really allows you to go, wait, I have a metric for this. I have a barometer that somebody else experienced this as well, because I think you're right. You kind of question your own sanity. It's like, did that really happen? Is that really what I experienced? But when you have another person that can step in and go, yeah, this is what I saw, and it matches what you saw. I think that's incredibly powerful, and it's maybe a sanity check in a lot of ways.
Sure, you get validation,
Yes,
and it really, I was so happy that he remembered that because, I haven't talked to him in 45 years, it's been years. And, to have him before I could even get it out of my mouth, finish my sentence. And I was just like, oh my God. So both of us had a profound experience at, 10-year-old boys, we're probably listening to Three Dog Night out there and, whatever we were doing,
sure,
having just fun being kids, running around. And then all of a sudden a spaceship comes down and, you know,
yeah,
to have somebody else there, it really, it is validating. And I'm thank goodness for that.
yeah,
So yeah, then for me, kind of going into the teen years, of course, then at this point, I've got a real interest in the subject of anything unusual, a mystery, but UFOs. And, I didn't do a lot of reading probably, but I did when I had a chance to find a book on the subject of UFOs or see the Leonard Nimoy shows or whatever,
sure,
would be interested in that. And when I became a teenager, I remember trying to talk to my friends about the subject, and usually they would be like, "Shut up, man! Come on." But we did a lot of hanging out and up there in the country. And so we would have big, clear skies, oftentimes filled with stars.
sure,
And we're out there maybe with a little campfire or something. And there have been a number of times when, of course, bad enough I'm an artist. So any credibility, forget about it. But, I'm a teenager at this point and we're probably drinking beer. But I remember looking up at the stars and just thinking about what was out there. And sometimes I'm thinking that I may have been sending messages or something in my mind. But I remember telling my friends, there's stars up there and they're moving around, and they'd be like, shut up, you know. I'm like, seriously, look straight up, you know. It's like there's 4 or 6 of those stars moving around in formation, and eventually they're like, holy crap, you know. Yeah, we see it, you know. And we're not, this is before drones or anything like that, and I'm seeing these stars way up there in the sky making very sharp angled turns, and they're like doing a dance up there in the sky, and we're watching it for a long period of time. And you know, this is not a satellite, this is not but the weird part is it seemed like it was right above us. And then I go, you know, did I just happen to by chance see this? Or I mean, I'm looking, you know, I probably see more things than a lot of people because was always looking in the sky and looking for these things. And I remember as a little child looking out my window up into the stars, wondering if the spacemen were coming back, wondering about the spaceship stuff. So I've been looking, you know, and even riding in the car at night, looking at the sky, thinking in my mind while I'm a passenger, my parents or whatever, where are they, kind of thing. There's that longing of wonder of what and who is there. So
Right.
I don't know what, you know, if I'm just seeing these things and people are just too busy to bother to notice. But while I was a teenager around the same time with the same guys, I remember we got paranoid one night. There was a place called the 100 Acre Lot. Anybody that's listening to this knows about it. It was a hangout for teenagers in the bunch of woods, and we would have a little campfire, drink beer or whatever, you know, we were doing. And we saw a bright light in the woods moving around. It was not on the ground level. It was above, around the treetop and dropping down into the behind the trees and moving around. Very bright. It looked like it had a beam of some kind of light shining down. We thought it was the police in a helicopter, and they were going to bust us. They were looking for us like we were guilty of something other than being stupid teenagers. We got all kind of freaked out, and we started running around trying to, you know, but what I realized was, and of course, in hindsight as well, I'm like, first of all, my little town, the police didn't even have a helicopter, you know, and there was no noise attached to this light. You know, there was no helicopter noise. There was, and I don't even think that a helicopter could fit in, you know, with the blades going. I don't think they would be dropping down near trees and stuff.
Right.
You know? So it was a very strange thing that was going on. And of course, I, you know, remember we got up to a higher elevation trying to get away and watching in there into these woods and seeing this thing moving around. And then, you know, it's like a flash. It just, I don't know. Went so quickly that your mind was going, what just happened? It was gone, you know?
Right.
And, again, I was just always in a mystery, you know, like what was that? And,
Sure.
you know, had other, strange sightings like that, as a kid. Oftentimes, you know, they were usually look like a strange looking star or brighter than the star moving around, but then it does something unusual. So you know that it's not a satellite or anything like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, living up in an area and around a lake where there was, so I'm going to tell you this story here, which to this day, I don't know. There's a lot of speculation, you know, what
Sure.
happened? Why did this happen? In 1979, I borrowed my dad's car so I could go see my friends. And it was during the summer months. And my dad, my parents, my father, and my stepmother bought a house on the lake outside of town. My friends lived in town. There's only really one route to easily get from my home into town and from town back because it rode up the side of the lake against one of the roads. And any other way would have been a really long way to try to get home. So
Right.
my dad said, all right, you can borrow the car, but I have an important meeting tomorrow morning. I want you to be home at a reasonable time. Okay. Well, my dad was 6'2", William the Viking. This guy, a big burly guy with a beard, and my friends would be like, "Come on, stay out longer," this kind of stuff. I'm like, my dad, and then when they saw my dad mad, they're like, "Your dad's scary when he's mad." I'm like, "Yeah, I've been trying to tell you guys this.
Sure.
Yeah, he is, and he'll be waiting for me to get home. So I said I would come home at a reasonable time. And, I don't really recall exactly what I was doing, just doing a normal
Sure.
teenage thing in the summer, meeting up with a girlfriend or my buddies or whatever. It was just a normal evening. But I was heading home that night to try to make sure that I got home on time. Because I knew if I didn't, my dad would probably be sitting there in the living room waiting for me. And I just can't even figure this out for the life of me, but I was heading on home, driving down the road, and for whatever reason, I turned off the main road, heading out into the country. What was the name of this? Darn it, I can't remember the name of the road. It doesn't matter. But this road goes nowhere but out into the cow pasture, or not cow pasture, but out in farmland. It's rolling hills and dairy farms out there. There's nothing else out that way. And I don't even know, no idea why I turned there and just started driving that way. But as I did, I I ended up driving into a really thick bank of fog, and I got completely disoriented as I was driving in this bank of fog. And I just remembered, maybe it was deprivation or something, but I just remember thinking, I feel like I'm just floating, and the next thing I remember, I woke up the next morning and I was in Pennsylvania. I was driving on northbound. My home was westbound from the lake, and I end up turning and going north. But when I woke up in the morning, I was on the other side of the border into Pennsylvania, on the other side of the lake.
Oh.
And I woke up in the seat of the car in front of a small lake. I had no idea where the heck I was.
Oh no.
And I just looked at a map the other day, curious about this. I never looked into this. For years, I just put it off going, I don't know, what, I don't know what was wrong with me. Why did I do that? I don't know what happened. But I looked at the map and I thought, there's no way, first of all, if you're stuck in a bank of fog, eventually you're going to drive out of it. Or why didn't I turn around and come back? And why did I turn off in the first place? But when I looked at the map and saw that would have had to drive all the way around the circumference of the lake to get over to the other side of the lake, which would have been long way to go. I would have had to go back into town or go the other really long way around to get to where I ended up. And I remember waking up very confused in the morning, early morning hours, hearing birds chirping, and woke up and saw myself sitting at the wheel and feeling just terrible. I just was like, oh, what is going on? And I was very frightened, not knowing where I was or how I even got there. And then all of a sudden I thought, oh my God, Dad's going to kill me, and I was so worried about my dad,
Yeah.
but I didn't even know where the heck I was to try to figure out how to get home, So I was driving around out in this countryside, and I finally saw somebody, and I was like, can you tell me where I am? And they're like, you're in Bear Lake, Pennsylvania, Can you tell me how to get to, there's no GPS. I have no cell phone to call anybody.
Right.
I'm out in the middle of the nowhere in Amish country, and so of course, when I finally got my bearings straight, and it took me an hour to try to get back home. I had to drive all the way around town to get. Now they built a bridge
Right.
across the lake in the '80s, but before that, there was no way to get across the lake unless you took this ancient ferry across, which
Mhm.
I did not do. But anyways, I get home and my father is livid. He is livid. And matter of fact, I think my siblings laugh about this because I think he was chasing me around the driveway, and I threw the keys to him. And he was trying to get his hands on me, and I was trying my best to avoid him because I knew that he was yelling at me, and the only excuse I had was I got lost in the fog, and he was like, "You're lost in the fog, all right, young man. You're forget borrowing the car. You're not going to
Ooh,
drive for the rest of your life, kind of a thing.
I
And
know.
we never spoke about it again, and I don't know what happened other than the horrible thought that maybe you
Yeah.
know I was taken,
Right.
but
Right.
I
Interesting.
have a blocked memory of anything other than the feeling, the sensation that I was floating while in the car,
Yeah.
which again, I don't know if that was just because I lost the ability to see what was going on around me, or
Right.
if, I have to assume since I looked at that map that there's no way that I would have driven myself all the way, I mean, around the
Yeah.
entire circumference of the lake to get over to the other way over there and
Yeah.
many miles from home.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is now you've talked about the potential of maybe looking into regressive hypnosis to find out what's going on in these blank spots. But I got to tell you, I kind of really agree with the idea of not knowing, because while it would probably really help to understand more of the nature of the phenomena, but then the person has to live with the memory that currently they don't have to live with. I mean, you got these holes, and so other than these little blank spots, it's business as usual. But once you know, you can't unknow. And I don't know. I'd like to believe that it's maybe these memory blocks are just for our own good, just not to get too focused on this other phenomena, and to be more focused on your life and doing it. But the other part of it is that a lot of times people have very traumatic memories that they are now forced to live with and deal with. And maybe it doesn't matter either way, because maybe the trauma is subconscious, and maybe it manifests in people's lives without having conscious knowledge of it. But still, that's a tough thing. So I'm kind of in agreement with you, because once you know, you can't unknow it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, I will tell you that do have. I use a sense of humor to get through a lot.
Sure.
I mean, I will make jokes, at times and so forth. And there's a big stigma here coming out and talking about being alien abduction. I mean,
Absolutely.
I never thought I would talk about this. Honestly, it was your show that made me finally come out. But if
Hmm.
somebody's listening to this that goes, "Oh my goodness, yes, I relate to this story," it is a very lonely place to be.
Yeah.
My best, a lot of people that have known me for many years are going to hear this for the first time, and only close family members have I spoken about this to. And so this is a big move for me to do
Hmm.
this, but at this point in my life, I'm 63 years of age. I've lived with all this for all these years,
Yeah.
and I've decided to talk about it. And there is a therapeutic part of this for me to finally open that drawer that I've had locked for so many years, and to talk about it. I have thought about the hypnosis, and at one point in time, I was ready to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The opportunity slipped by, and I'll talk about that in a short bit here. But again, like you say, yeah, once you open that door, that's it. You may wish that you would have had that, could block it again. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there is some blocking. I
Yeah.
will tell you that I have a lot of vivid dreams, and
Mm-hmm.
some of that seems like some of that blocking comes out during these dreams. And I
Sure.
guess we could talk about that subject a little bit too, because some of these dreams are very vivid, and
Yeah.
I just go,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, what is going on? But
Right.
so for several years after that incident in 1979, I moved away to go to art school, and then I moved to South Florida. Nothing seemed to be going on. I moved on with you got to move on with your life and just
Right.
keep going. I had things to do. I moved to South Florida to finish some schooling up and changed my environment, and I was trying to get my career started and so forth. I was preoccupied with a lot of things going on, and really put a lot of the paranormal things behind me. Every once in a while, some quirky little thing would happen, but for the most part, I was just trying to move along in life, and I, just didn't deal just didn't deal with it at that point in time.
Yeah.
But I remember in 1987, I call it an awakening that happened to me, that I was walking through the mall, and I looked into the bookstore window, and I saw Whitley Strieber's Communion book sitting there, and also Bud Hopkins' book. What was that? Intruders was out in 1987,
Mm-hmm.
and they were in the bookstore window, and it stopped me in my tracks. And I was looking at this painting on the cover of an alien gray, and whatever reason that really resonated with me in a deep, like, disturbing way, And
Right.
suddenly, I think for the first time, I had seen an image that really struck home with me in some ways. I don't know. I walked into the store, I bought the books, I went home, I started reading them, and I had an epiphany that, oh my God, I am an abductee. I had read about Barney and Betty Hill,
Sure.
and I never connected it to me per se, um, even though I found it to be interesting. I just, whatever reason, that maybe it's all about timing, but
Yeah.
1987, suddenly this hit me, and it hit me really hard,
Yeah.
and I had nobody to. I remember talking to my mother and my brother about it. My brother moved to South Florida, and he and I lived together when this happened, and we openly talked about this. But at that point, you just don't know what you can do about it. You're like,
Yeah.
but I learned at this point that there were many, many other people with a very similar experience going on. And, I was shocked to learn this. I just thought for years, I wondered, did I have some kind of religious experience?
Right.
What was all this? Did it really happen or not? And so forth. You're kind of just speculating on a lot of things, and then to read these books, and suddenly it hit me. So that year, I think was the year I met my wife somewhere along the line, and I don't know, my brother and I, after struggling with roommates and stuff, we decided we were going to split away from each other and he moved in with his girlfriend, who became the mother of his children, and I moved in with my girlfriend, who became my wife. So don't judge here. And we've been together ever since. So I don't know what it's been, 36 years or something.
Congratulations.
Something somewhere in that area. Anyways, so we moved into a small apartment together, and somewhere along the line, I think, it was it was towards the end of 1987 when we moved in together. So we moved into a small little apartment, and in 1988, around May, some strange things started to occur in our apartment, and I became hyper aware and felt paranoid that something was going to happen to me. I felt like, it's weird, but I think I read somewhere where other people get this feeling that something's going to happen before they become abducted. And I started just feeling like I kept staring out the window, and I actually found an old file. I have a pack rat here, so I found a file that I kept of notes from that time. And somewhere along the line, my wife had asked me, she's like, some strange things have been going on, and I confessed to her that, oh, weird things happen around me, I'm like, what do you mean, like weird things, But there were sort of like poltergeist type little activities going on, strange electrical things going on with stuff, noises in the apartment. She heard some tapping on a window, on a second floor story window, on the outside of and I was sound asleep when she heard that, and she mentioned it. So I wrote these little scribbled notes on a piece of paper with a date on there. And also noted that I was looking at what I thought was a UFO out the window with binoculars, just prior to something happening.
Yeah.
And so within a day or two of these events in May of 1988, I woke up one evening while we were in our little humble apartment, struggling couple, and there were beings in the room again.
Wow.
And I was again frozen with the inability to move. I tried to scream out. I could see her laying next to me in a deep sleep, and I was trying to reach out to grab her or scream to her, and I was unable to do that. And I felt myself being lifted up out of bed again. Now, I think I was, when this was going on, I was I was probably around 27 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think that was somewhere around that. But I have the dates. It's May 17, 1988. I saw the UFO craft. And anyways, so, I'm this terrifying thing happens. And then I wake up the next morning, and I knew something happened as soon as I woke up. And I felt like crap. I mean, I felt like I had a pounding headache. I just was kind of in a horrified, situation where I was, again, you start questioning your sanity. I looked and I saw some few droplets of blood on my pillow, and I found some crusted blood around my nostril.
Oh.
And interestingly, I found a small BB sized object on my pillow or in the bed right next to me. I don't know. But,
Did you keep it?
I'm like, I kept this thing for years. And so this little object, it was gray. It had a little bit of a rough texture, perfectly round, about the size of a BB, maybe a tiny bit small. It had a slightly roughened surface if you rubbed it between your fingers. It felt almost like ceramic. It was very hard. I looked at it under a magnifying glass and would poke at it with an X-Acto knife and stuff. It was, whatever this thing was. I ended up putting it in a jewelry box, and I had it for years. And only recently did I decide, because for years I go, am I crazy? Is this just a piece of junk? Wait, I mean, or is it something?
Yeah.
And a number of months back, I made an effort, because we've moved several times. 36 years have gone by. I thought, you know what? I'm going to get this thing out. I'm going to send this thing to somebody and move on, or try to find somebody to analyze it. Because, you'd be like, hey, I think this thing was, why did the aliens,
Was it an
if they
implant?
were aliens,
Yeah.
did they accidentally drop this thing, or did they remove it out of my sinus cavity?
Right.
Were they trying to put it in there, and somehow it ended up falling out? I mean, these are all things that go on in my head.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
But I had this thing for years. But I thought it was in a cabinet, which I have a lot of stuff. So
Sure.
this cabinet became a catch-all. And when I finally decided to go through this cabinet and looking for this thing, it's still possible it could be here in my home, but I have not been able to find it. And I'm like, the one tangible piece of possible evidence that I have to corroborate my story, now I can't find it after 36 years of thinking that I've had it all this time. But then there's part of me going, did I just wake up one day and go, this is ridiculous. Why am I keeping this, and toss it out? But I don't really recall doing that. But
Sure.
there's times when I've denied what's happened. I just blocked it out for many years, focused on my career and family, and just try to pretend it didn't happen. But then it keeps looping back to me, so
Wow.
that happened.
That's really interesting. And, these experiences are absolutely incredible. What you're talking about is very profoundly, very much in line with the abduction scenarios that many people have reported. So, I mean, it's definitely, especially the implants, because there's got to be some way they keep an eye on people, and certainly the implants have been a fascinating development in the ongoing research in this stuff, because these elements, whatever they are, and some people have broken it down to the metallurgy and stuff, and oftentimes many of the elements in these things aren't found on Earth. And one of the theories that floats around is that, well, maybe they're micrometeoroids that people were hit with and they don't really know it, and then they end up finding these lumps and get them removed, and they're these metal objects. And it's like, oh, come on, really? I mean, sometimes the explanations are more science fiction than the potential fact that it's, we're being visited,
Yeah, and sometimes people in the scientific community will come up with crazier ideas or answers than just facing the fact that this may be nanotechnology from another species out there. So that's the thing. I'm upset that I was searching all over there, going, gosh dang it, I need to find this thing. And, eventually, of course, my wife's like, what in the heck are you looking for now? And, I'm like, oh, that thing, that thing that I found, it's been in a box.
Sure. What if it was replaced, for instance?
Well,
I mean, have you ever thought of doing like an MRI, or in the course of just an examination, getting something like an MRI or a CAT scan that might show, or even in X-rays? A lot of times these things allegedly show up in X-rays. So have you?
Yeah. Well, through the years, I have had I've had a lot of sinus issues and stuff. And just the other day, I was thinking about before this conversation here, I started thinking about things, and I go, a number of years back, and the interesting thing is, I'll tell you this, I was in the dentist chair getting a root canal. This would be in the 1990s.
Okay.
I'm leaning back in the chair, and the only thing I could see from my point of view was a high window in the room that I'm just seeing the blue sky and some billowy clouds. And I'm laying there, and the dentist leaves while I got my mouth wide open. I got Novocaine in there,
Sure.
No gas or anything. I'm perfectly sober, but I'm sitting there in a very uncomfortable situation. And while I'm sitting there staring at the sky at this cloud, a silver egg-shaped object emerges out of the cloud for a second or two, just long enough for me to see it clearly, and then it darts back behind the cloud, and I'm laying there going, my mouth open, and then the dentist comes back in, and I have to just act like nothing happened, but I'm like, oh my God, I just saw, the weird part was I felt like, again, almost like I thought of it, something, and then it showed, I don't know, this messes with your mind.
Yes.
But the only reason I bring this up now is because that later, after that dental appointment, I found out that there was some kind of a strange thing that they realized in an x-ray where they found an anomaly up into my sinus cavity in my face.
Oh.
And they sent me to a dental surgeon. And the dental surgeon said, I would like some of my dental some of the students to see this. I've never seen anything quite as large as what you have in your face, and it's affected the bone in your face here, kind of thing. And I was like, oh my God, I wish now that I would have said, can I please see this thing afterwards? But they removed an object. Well, maybe it was some kind of a cyst or something, but there was a nerve that was being affected by it and ran down into my tooth.
Ouch.
So they did the surgery and they removed this thing from inside my mouth. They had to go up into it and remove this. And again, I wonder, was that a natural biological thing, or was there something that my body was trying to build around this? And I only recently started to, but it just seems weird that, again, as I'm getting worked on, I have actually a UFO sighting and then find out there's an anomaly in my face, I will always just question these things. As far as it is.
It's incredible. Now, I think it's this whole series of events, I think are all, probably, again, it's very, very consistent with so many other reports. And I have no doubt that you've experienced what you said you've experienced. I think you should write a book. I mean, you really have the foundations for the next communion book, or at least another one, which I think is powerful as well. But it's
incredible. I certainly, now that I'm at this age, like I say, for years, I kind of shoved him I just imagine my brain being an old dented up file drawer, because I have a dented up file drawer here, and I have things from, that I pulled out for this conversation going, oh, in 1987, there it is, and, he just, looking back, I have to conclude that, this is real. This really happened.
Well,
I think I should mention that after that abduction and me finding that little device, there was more to the story.
Okay.
So I may have to go back to 1988 again, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I definitely don't want to leave a half story out there for sure.
All right. So I wake up, I go through this whole thing. I tell, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, we're going to go through this. Oh boy, I don't want to mention her name.
Yeah, that's fine.
She'll get mad at me probably. But I told her, oh my God, I believe I was abducted last night, and she's still with me. So God bless her, but I'm sure that's a lot for anybody who's an abductee, to have a family member, have a spouse or some significant other, to have to go through this, because I'm traumatized. And she doesn't know what to think. You had a bad dream, maybe, but
Right.
And so while I'm going through this, my brother calls me. He lives 8 miles down the road from me, and my brother calls me and he goes, "I was abducted last night."
Wow.
And I'm like, You're like, what? And I mean, I asked him if I could share his story. He goes, I don't care. Sure, go ahead.
Oh,
I don't
nice.
care anymore.
Good for him.
You can tell my story, you know.
Yeah.
And so he's living in a townhouse 8 miles north of where we're living. And you know, the interesting thing about this is we're no longer in a small little town in Western New York anymore.
Right.
We are living in Fort Lauderdale, Florida area. This is a very populated place. I live in an
Right.
apartment complex. He's living in a townhouse. And, you know, so how could you possibly get abducted in that kind of a scenario? But, you know, here it is. These things have the ability to, you know, do whatever they want and manipulate things in
Sure.
many different ways, I suppose, you know. So he tells me he wakes up in the middle of the night. He's thirsty as F. He wakes up thirsty. He can't just say it the norm, you know.
Sure.
He wakes up. He's sleeping in the nude. Apparently, he wraps a towel around him. He goes down the stairs to the kitchen. As he's preparing to open the refrigerator door, he suddenly gets hit by this sense of terror that something is there. As he's opening the door up, he's hit by this blinding light, is what he said. And at that point in time, everything goes blank. He wakes up sometime later into the dining room, and he is laying on the floor, and he felt like he was in pain, that he had been put through some unmentionable examinations of sorts.
Sure.
And the towel that was wrapped around him was folded in a neat little square over his groin. It was saturated with urine, he said. And the furniture that was in the room was moved out of place. So the big, heavy dining room table was moved out of the way, and some chairs, and he was laying flat on his back. Again, he knew that at that moment that he had been abducted and taken and experimented on or examined, and he was worried. Now, his girlfriend at the time was pregnant, 8 months pregnant with their first child, and she was upstairs, and he was fearing for her and the pregnancy, and ran up there to see if she was okay. And she was sleeping, and the baby was fine and everything.
Oh, thank God.
But, you know, the thought that he and I both were taken at the same time.
Wow.
Well, it's not the kind of corroboration or validation I would want, but it also, you know, made me go, well, this was not some weird dream.
Yeah.
This really happened to us.
Right.
And, you know, for years we didn't talk about this. It's just too much, you know. We just could not deal with it. So he and I, once in a while, we would talk a little bit. But last year when I went home, we all kind of met up there. He does not live up there either anymore in Western New York, but he was up there, and we got a chance to be together alone. And I started going, we've had a weird life, right? And, you know, let's talk about. So I interviewed my siblings while I was up there individually to try to get what their memories were. Right. And then, you know, he and I talked about the abduction thing, and, you know, he's kind of crass the way he talks about them, and I don't blame him. You know, you get a little pissed off when you think these things are really messing with you, and he believes that they probably took sperm samples from him. You know, maybe they have some breeding program. There's speculating of all kinds of things, why they were doing such things. You know, I mean, I don't know. You know, I'm going to share something that again. A lot of people don't even know this, but I found out when my wife and I decided we wanted to have children a few years after this event that I was sterile. I've been sterilized. And the doctor said to me, "Have you ever been exposed to high doses of radiation?" Or,
Oh no.
because and the only way to try to find out more would be to go through some real painful procedures. And I was
Yeah.
like, "Forget about it. We're just going to have to deal with it."
Right.
In hindsight, we have an amazing adopted child, and
Yeah.
I think some crazy reason I was supposed to be his father. He is
Sure.
a very unique, highly intelligent person. And honestly, I read a little bit of, I call it new agey stuff, but I mean, I think he may be a star child. He
Sure.
is of Mayan descent. He's indigenous, and he
Wonderful.
has knowledge. We call him an old soul since we brought him home. And, I think maybe it's my job to, prepare him for whatever his journey is. I
Yeah.
don't know. But, it was, these are things that all this stuff, you go, well, maybe there was a natural uh, thing that happened to me. But on the other hand, then you can't help but wonder, did these beings do something to me? And I will never know the answer to that, but it
Yeah.
is kind of crazy.
It is really crazy, and what a journey it is, brother. And I'm really grateful that we had this chance to dive deep into these things, because I know that there is going to be plenty of people listening to this show, and they're going to go, wow, and understand what you're talking about more than others. And quite honestly, I don't think there's obviously these are all instances of circumstances outside of your control. This isn't something you asked for. This isn't something you sought out. It seems to have found you, and possibly had been, occurring to your family maybe for many generations. It's hard to know, but I think it's very brave of you to, come on here and to share these things, because you want people to know. You shared that you obviously your whole family lived in a situation with a lot of strangeness, as between this episode and the last episode we covered quite a bit. But I had asked you if your brother had any other experiences, but this is the only one he seems to at least acknowledge, and I find that interesting, because is it possible? And let me just, we can include this or not. This is me throwing out an idea, but is it possible that they had somehow inadvertently ended up causing you not to be able to have children? But maybe we're looking at your brother to see if there was a way to reverse it or something. I don't know. It's wild speculation, but it's interesting that he would just suddenly have this experience himself. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. You're going
Yeah.
to always question so many things.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the child that his son uh, was born, in June, right after this event happened to us in May of that year.
Hmm.
And that child ended up being extremely bright,
Oh.
and like my son, he was very interested in deep space and the stars. I mean, when my little boy, as a child, I was reading Danny the Dinosaur and Curious George. He wanted books on the universe and talks about black holes in space and dwarf stars, and it
Wow.
was way over my head. So I.
Oof.
I have to look at him when we're watching science fiction movies and go, okay, can you explain what's going on here? So, his intellect is above mine. So,
Sure.
these are questions I will never know the answers to, only can speculate on things, but, makes you wonder
It does make
for
you wonder.
sure.
And one other thing that I'd like to throw in there, and this is just me, but I've got to believe that today's kids are way more intelligent than I was as a kid, and there does seem to be some kind of metamorphosis or an evolution of intellect that we're experiencing, because like my youngest son and all of my three children were incredibly prolific with technology. Just like, and granted, they were born into it. When I was young, we didn't have technology. I mean, there were just there was just toys and
Right.
Ataris, for video games. So we had a real rudimentary form of technology, and so it's possible that just they've been exposed to it. It just comes second nature because they've been observing it their whole lives. But I do think that kids are getting smarter, and some people may argue with that, but
Yeah.
you know what I
Well,
mean. It's like
yeah.
they just seem to pick up things like pow, you know.
Well, part of me hopes that for humanity's sake,
Yeah,
and I do think that there's a good possibility that human beings have been manipulated for a long time, and that may
sure.
stir some people up listening here. But I think that for us to continue to survive, we need to start to come up with a different consciousness, some different way of getting along here and not being such warring
Yeah,
creatures, you know.
yeah, amen.
So, that may sound new agey or whatever you want to call it, but, I do, as a child, carried the weight of the world on my shoulders. And my grandmother said that to me one time. She looked at me with her little psychic look, and she says, for a little child, you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You should just be enjoying being a kid.
Yeah,
And yes, I ran around playing tag, and I sat there with a roll of caps in a rock, banging like a caveman. But
sure.
I did carry the weight of world. I did worry about things that most little kids shouldn't. And makes me think that they may have been putting thoughts into my head of being conscious about
Yeah.
caring for things and so forth. I don't know, but there may be an effort to try to change the consciousness or development of human beings to hopefully make us so that we aren't angry ape-like creatures with weapons. I mean,
That's a good point. And I'm going to reference when I was talking to George Norrie. I'm like, George, why did all that stuff stop? Because I think there's something to the ancient astronaut theories and the fact that they were very involved in the formation of our civilizations. And I'm like, but why did it stop? And he says, I don't think it has. I just think
yeah.
it's changed, and maybe that's exactly right. Maybe what you're saying is just reinforcing that idea. So well said. Before we wrap up today, you wanted to share one more thing with us.
Yeah, I've had dreams about UFOs throughout my life. They're very vivid often, and a lot of times it's me looking up and just seeing the ships coming in, various different shapes of ships, or I'm with groups of people, or I'm leading a group of people. But there's been a few, and then my wife has woken me up from nightmares of being abducted,
Mm,
and I'm thrashing in my sleep. She wakes me up. So I do have some post-traumatic stress
sure.
at times from this, I believe.
Yeah.
But I had a dream that was so bizarre and so detailed, I just had to share it. And in the dream, now I'm an adult, young adult, in my probably late 20s, early 30s, maybe when I had this dream. But in the dream, I dreamt that everything was black and I felt wetness on the bottoms of my feet. And when I opened my eyes in my dream, I found myself sleepwalking in a field. And while I looked around, there were other people in their sleep clothing walking through this field as well. And it was dew on the bottoms of my feet that I was feeling. And I looked over, and I realized that I am like a 10, 11-year-old boy in this dream. And I'm in my pajamas. And I look over and I see my brother's little friend there. I hadn't thought about this kid in years and years. And there he is. He's like a 5-year-old kid, and I'm a 10-year-old kid, 11-year-olds maybe. And I call out to him and I wake him out of this sleepwalking, and he's confused, and he looks at me and goes, what's going on? Why are we here? And there was a light down by the woods. I knew where I was. I was at the end of my childhood street, At the end of the street, there was a field, and then there was woods that we used to play in back there. And we were crossing this field towards the woods, and there was a glowing light down there. And all these people from my neighborhood were walking towards this light in their sleep clothing. And I told the kid, I won't mention his name, even though it probably won't matter. But I told him, we're supposed to go to the light. And he and I began walking towards this thing. And as we got closer, it was a spaceship landed there at the end of the field with right near the trees. And there were beings there, and people were boarding the ship via a ramp in a sleep state. And just as we're walking into the ship, I wake up from this, but it was so detailed, and it was a flashback from going back to 1972 again. And there's this kid that I hadn't thought about, my brother's little buddy from childhood, shows up, and I could hear his voice and the whole, it was just weird. I thought, could they show up in a neighborhood? Looking back, could they just be showing up in neighborhoods and just abducting an entire neighborhood and people not know? Or what would make me have a dream like that, so detailed? And the weird thing with the dew under my feet that woke me up out of the sleepwalking trance, it's just very weird.
That's incredibly profound. And you got to wonder, is that just a resurfaced memory that came up while you're in your sleep state? Or was it some kind of psychic projection of I don't know, the abduction situation? Like it was maybe, I don't know. It could be so many things, but it could, since it was so vivid and lucid, that really does kind of suggest, especially since you were an adult, but dreaming of yourself as this child, it does sound like some kind of memory resurfacing. Of an experience.
Yeah, I know. It it's so vivid that it's one of those dreams that you just remember completely in detail, and where a lot of them you just forget about almost as soon as you wake up. But not that one. And I thought that it's again just beyond my ability to think that back at that time there were a bunch of things going on right around then, the same time age when I saw the UFO in the Allegheny National Forest. So, it makes me wonder what the deal was with that. But, again, I will question these things for the rest of my life. There's been other things. I'm kind of afraid to, part of me wants to go out there in someplace peaceful and quiet and think about them. But the last time I did that in Guatemala on the lake, I laid out there during a meteor shower, and I started kind of calling out to them, going, show me a sign, and as everybody else went to bed, I had that quiet time where I sort of meditated into it. And then I finally got up and went to bed 2 a.m. And the next morning, the owner of the inn told me that two of the guys that worked for him saw a spaceship sitting out there over the lake, right where I was at. And that exhilarated me and terrified me at the same time. I thought, oh my gosh, so it can't be a coincidence. It must be that they can, so I can think about them and they know it. I mean, I don't know. It's a mind blower. I can't express how confusing it is. Part of me wants to go, okay, maybe I have some mission. Maybe there's something I'm supposed to be doing. And seeing things kind of building up in the news and the chaos, I can't help but wonder, am I supposed to be doing something, And I just don't know what to do. Part of me says I need to be out on a couple acres of land and build a landing pad or something. I don't know, what I'm supposed to be doing, but I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something to prepare.
Maybe that's what you're doing here. Maybe that's exactly what you're doing here. Sharing your experience. The more people that talk about this, the more I think people can understand and understand understanding this phenomenon. Maybe, I mean, this might be this whole UFO interest that seems to be expanding and expanding could be parts of what will become a disclosure of sorts. Not, that they are getting ready to reveal themselves, and so now maybe that's part of the mission, is that you are talking about this. Other people are talking about it, because the ramifications of a potentially alien civilization revealing themselves to an unprepared public, I think, could be disastrous, horrifying, and
Sure.
War of the Worlds kind of stuff. But
Sure.
I think that's part of this, is that we're talking about it and you're sharing these experiences, and that's helping us to understand that, I mean, obviously, if they just showed up, we might think, well, this is an invading force. But
Right.
if they've been here and they've been part of our journey anyway, then maybe it's more benign and benevolent than we believed. But I don't know. I mean, that's just a theory, but that's my theory, is that there's a reason we're all talking about this stuff now, and there's a reason that people's interest is growing and more people are accepting the idea that we're not alone in the universe than ever before. So I think these are powerful moments. But
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's been a slow go. They went from excuses the government is swamp gas and everybody's crazy. If you see anything, whatever you do, don't report it, or you're crazy.
yeah,
And now we have government and military coming out bit by bit. I think they know that they can't just drop that on us hard. They need to try to little by little. And I believe that these beings are showing up, here and there. Now they're starting to show up where groups of people are seeing them and catching things on camera. And it's acclimating us to this idea.
sure.
And like you say, perhaps these conversations are needed for people who have gone through this to understand, if they wanted to hurt me, they would have chopped me up. I mean, I don't understand the cattle mutilation thing. I've been a member of MUFON since 1997, so I do read, these information about all this and know a lot of the history and so forth. But, when it gets to the personal stuff, it's a very difficult thing for people to go through. Yeah. It is very isolating, but hopefully through communication, more and more of this will be accepted, not just be a joke. Because a lot of it, I see the skits on Saturday Night Live. I mean, I read I see the jokes, and I've made the jokes about all the stuff too to deal with it. But, it really is an issue for people. Yeah. And a lot of people, I mean, I'm talking probably thousands and thousands of people around the world, possibly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again for doing this today, Barry. It's been an incredible journey, and fascinating and even a little bit disturbing. But I'm really, again, I thank you for your bravery and your willingness to come forward and discuss this on top of your last visit, because, the rabbit hole definitely goes deeper, doesn't it?
Sure does. Well, thank you so much, Brent. It's been wonderful, and I appreciate you very much. And hopefully we'll continue on another time.
Amen, brother. The pleasure is all mine, but thank you again, and I appreciate you being here. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap it up for us today. So hope you guys enjoyed the show, and thank you again so much for all your love and support. And remember, if you want to follow the Paranormal Portal, probably the easiest way is to head over to paranormalportal.net. And that's the homepage for the Paranormal Portal. And you'll find links to all of our different social media and sites and information about the shows, including our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/paranormalportal. Or just look for Paranormal Portal on Google or whatever search engine, and you'll find links to our social media, such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So we're kind of all over the place, and we're spreading as well as we can. But anyway, thank you so much for the love and support. Y'all take care, and remember, we love y'all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out. Find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Until next time.